Thanks for tuning in, folks, and welcome back to Wham Talk 1600's Operating Theater. It's the only OR in all talk radio. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting from our ancillary bunker, linked to our main freedom bunker in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor. We're here for you every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern, live. Even today, there were many people saying, Dave, just tape the show during the week and play the tape show on Sunday, June 4th. Or, Dave, just do a best of show on June 4th. It's your birthday. Nope, not going to do it. No, because I am giving myself a birthday present today on June 4th. And that is to do the live show. You see, the birthday present Dave is giving to Dave is to do this show, and my goal is to make the miserable lives of the globalist cult even more miserable by exposing their fraud. That's right. That is my birthday present to myself. Bottom line, folks, every week in our operating room, we dissect current events that are impacting you, your family, your business, our community, and our country. But it doesn't start and stop on Sundays from 2 to 5 Eastern. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com. The freedom light is always on for you, and the globalist cult puppets hate that, because on that website, I present information you cannot get from any other source, that you cannot get on social media platforms, or frankly, that I can't go to on the radio, because there are deep state choke points in the FCC that would turn Wham's Talk 1600's Freedom Bunker inside out if I went there, which is what is reserved at davejanda.com. We have a tremendous amount of free public information, but there's also the subscription side where I drop the heavy artillery. That's right. That I get from my sources that I've developed over 35 years from behind the curtain. And it's interesting because when we talk about those issues behind the curtain at davejanda.com, what I talk about, the public becomes aware of it 6 months, a year, in some cases a decade, sometimes even more than a decade later. And that's what we do at davejanda.com. We put you ahead of the globalist constructed curve that ends in a brick wall with the smashing, the shattering of your freedoms and your liberties and your future and your life in our constitutional republic. And through our efforts at davejanda.com and this radio show, we provide you an off-ramp for your freedom and liberty and financial security and health and welfare and medical care security. That's right. In a nutshell, that's what we do. And we bring to our operating room information and guests the bought-off, lamestream fake media either ignores because it doesn't fit into their preconceived, politically correct, bought-off agenda, or because, folks, they're petrified. They're petrified of what might happen if they actually tell you what you need to know. This show is about your freedom, your political, your economic, your financial, and your health care freedom. The common denominator with all of my guests on every show, and in particular today's show, are that they are dedicated to your freedom and your liberty and your well-being. And frankly, by speaking up and providing you the facts, the data, the science, in many cases, that you will never see through the bought-off lamestream fake media, they put their lives on the line in doing that. And my next guest is someone who has done that for well over a decade. She and her family and group at Camino Company have created a financial lifeboat for you. I have an upcoming video on one of the platforms where I talk about our country has become the Titanic. And the cult puppets du jour in Washington, both with an RND after the name, want you to believe you just stay on the ship as it's going down and listen to that band play on. No, they don't even want to acknowledge there are lifeboats, let alone your ability to get in them. And this is why Adriana Reed is not well liked by the cult, because she tells you not only about the lifeboat, but how to get in it. For those of you not familiar with Adriana, she has been with the Camino Company, Camino, C-A-M-I-N-O, CaminoCompany.com, since 2011 as a trader, and she is one of the principals in the Camino Company and one of the most knowledgeable and honest people in the precious metals arena. It's my honor to welcome back Adriana Reed. Adriana, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
So, Adriana, every so often, the cult hierarchy, not the puppets, but the hierarchy, issues us a heads up that something's coming. And in their sick, demented world, they believe, even though they've planned what's coming and they know it's going to adversely affect hundreds of millions, if not billions of people around the world, they think that they're actually being benevolent by letting us know what's coming. This recently came out from the hierarchy of one of the globalist tentacles, the International Monetary Fund. And here's what they said, and I'd like your take. The IMF says the world needs to prepare for the unthinkable after COVID and after the war in Ukraine. This from Catabella Roberts from the Epoch Times. International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva has warned that the world needs to be prepared to better handle shocks and, quote, the unthinkable, end quote, in a post-COVID-19 world and in light of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Adriana, your take about the unthinkable.
Yeah, I think the unthinkable that we're referencing is probably, in my perspective, would be the digital currency, would be the unthinkable that, you and I would never believe that they would actually do it. But I do believe that the things that we're experiencing right now, what the pandemic created and also the war in Ukraine, I think it's the smoking mirrors that they needed in order to get their job done and what their goals were as a global entity, in essence, that are working together to put us on a digital currency. And as you and I both know, this is just about control, and it's not about your freedoms or your liberties at all. It's about taking it away. It's about surveillance. It's about control of spending. And I do believe that that's probably the big shocker that we're going to be experiencing. I do think it is down the road, and it's something that will be implemented at some point in time. But I do believe that everything that they've done is so that they can set us up for an economic shock.
And as you said, Adriana, the lifeboats that you have outlined over the years are hard assets. As my dad used to say, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And if it's paper, it's vapor. Well, Adriana, they love to have people run to their paper currencies that are only backed by vapor. And they love to have people now want to get people to run to their digital currencies that are overseen by the governments, the federal banksters of the world. The same people who brought us COVID, the same people that brought us the Russia-Ukraine war are now telling us you're safe with the effective use of central bank digital currencies. In fact, Adriana, central bank digital currencies that are overseen by the central banks, the banksters, are just another form of a really incredibly effective way to strip people of their remaining freedoms. Am I off?
Dave, that's the only reason why they want to create it. If you think about it, when you go to the store and say your credit card gets declined for whatever reason, you had maybe some fraud on there's a real sense of control that they could say, hey, Dave, who did you vote for in the last election? We don't agree with you. We're going to cut your monetary spending off. And it's that easy with a keyboard.
Well, and in fact, isn't this exactly what we saw in Canada with the truckers, with Justin Fidel Jr. Trudeau? Where
exactly.
Right? They weren't playing ball with his freedom stripping agenda. And next thing you know, if you had digital currencies they locked them up.
Exactly. And that was all simply off of those people not wanting to get a shot. And that's just as simple as that. And the threat became very, very extraordinary to the point that they also threatened to take their children at that point in time and take control of their families. And the thing is you have to remember that we want to keep the United States as free as possible, as safe as possible, and everybody should be in opposition of our government at all times. They do not have your best interests ever. I was always grown up on the idea that the government is never looking out for you. You have to look out for yourself, and you need to know what your rights are so that you cannot be manipulated or coerced into doing something that you don't have to do.
Well, in fact, Adriana, you bring up a good point, because back on August 12th, 1986, gosh, holy cow, that would be 37 years ago. Ronald Reagan was at a press conference and he said, quote, "The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, quote, I'm from the government and I'm here to help," end quote.
Exactly. And what they're doing right now, Dave, and I believe that this is in the steps of their plan, is we saw the pandemic came first. It caused the chaos they needed, and it caused a lot of desperation in people. People, unfortunately, make terrible choices when they're desperate, which, if you need to feed your family or, you need to make ends meet, I completely understand that we make rash decisions. I believe that they put people in that position. I believe the next step in their plan is to hit us economically so that we all feel the need to rush to their digital currency, like you said.
Well, so right now, Adriana, we have said, well, wait a minute, just had this debt crisis, ceiling crisis, and they've solved. Wait a minute, they solved that? Did they really solve that? As Adriana, you and I have both talked about this for weeks before, but this was nothing but kabuki, just like it's always been. Whatever year when they continue to go, we're at a budget impasse, 2015, 2018, 2019, and all of a sudden deals are struck. And in this deal, Adriana, they essentially lifted the debt ceiling. They said the deal raises the debt ceiling by roughly $4 trillion over the next 2 years. But after 2025, there are no more budget caps, only, quote, non-enforceable appropriation targets. Adriana, this is more smoke and mirrors and more devaluing, as you outlined earlier in this segment, of our own paper currency that, by the way, is backed by vapor, nothing.
100%. 100%. My take is that you can have Democrats and Republicans fight over spending, but they're not fighting over how much is spent. They're fighting over what we're spending money on. And the fact of the matter is, if you or I had built up a bunch of credit card debt and didn't pay it back, we can't get more money on debt. That's not possible. And why our country keeps getting to do this is the problem is on the flip side, is when we add debt, it means that we're adding taxes that we don't need. It will come in the form of income taxes. It will be net capital gain taxes. They're going to find ways to take money from every family in this country, and they're going to use it to pay the debt back. And it's all things that, frankly, I don't want to pay for. So why is my money going to the things that I don't even want to pay for? I don't want to pay for the war in Ukraine. I would like the money to stay in this country. It's exactly what we're saying is that if I pay for a 5-star hotel, I expect 5-star results.
We're paying for a 5-star hotel, but we're living in a flea bag right now, a flea bag hotel. Yeah. So, Adriana, this past Friday, the employment numbers, the economy's fine. More smoke and mirrors. So they expected 195,000 jobs to be created last month. Actually, the number came in at 339,000. Wait. They actually had a bogus birth-death model in there of 231,000 jobs. So rather than 339,000 jobs created because of the bogey number that was put in there, only 108,000 jobs were created, of which 56,000 jobs were created in the government. But when they looked at a different survey, there were no jobs created. In fact, there were 310,000 people that were lost employment in the household survey, and the employment rate actually went up to 3.7%. And Adriana, 95, maybe more, % of people in this country said, that was a better jobs number than than was expected. So, yeah, my life is really bad financially. My job isn't secure. I'm getting cut back on my hours. I'm getting cut back on my benefit. It just must be me. There must be something wrong. No, it's not just you. Am I off on that?
No, absolutely not. The jobs report at this point in time is an absolute joke. And the problem is you have to look at what's going on the ground. Families in this country under the Biden administration have been spending $14,000 more a year due to inflation alone. $14,000. Now, the only thing that would create a jobs number like that, in my personal opinion, is if you have taking on extra jobs in order to make ends meet just to be able to survive. And that is sickening to me in this country. And then on top of that, I have seen more people laid off, especially in my area as I live in the center of the tech world, is I see more and more people laid off on a constant weekly basis, and it is swept under the rug. And I'm talking about 10,000 people being laid off at one time, and it is not being reported accordingly. And the problem you have is it doesn't let people take the time to prepare for recession. When you have major CEOs are walking around the country saying that they're firing people because they're in preparation for a major recession.
So, Adriana, let's talk about what people need to do to get in that. Let's talk about the lifeboat and what they need to get in the lifeboat. Educate our listeners on the power of precious metals, hard assets, gold and silver as the best insurance policy and the best lifeboat they can have.
Absolutely. So I am very adamant about precious metals, especially right now for a number of factors. Now, number one, if the recession, we are in a recession because I don't redefine definitions. So we are in a recession right now as we speak. So it will prepare you to get you through this recession because unfortunately, I think things are going to get way, way worse before they get better. Mm-hmm. And so owning precious metals, we work in opposition of inflation and recession. So it helps keep you afloat when times get really, really tough. The other reason I also am very adamant about buying gold and silver right now is because the threat of the digital currency that we're facing is astronomical, and it will make a huge difference in the United States as to your freedom and liberties like we spoke about earlier. So those are the two reasons why I'm adamantly pushing that everybody own precious metals. The main thing is you want to have some gold and some silver. I recommend that you keep it at home with you because we know that putting money back into the banking system is not safe at all, and you have to have easy access to it. I believe at this point in time, I think it's absolutely required because, unfortunately, we live in a world where it's going to be any given Sunday.
And educate listeners, Adriana, on purchasing gold and silver because they're told by their paper stockbrokers that it's difficult to do. You make it very straightforward, very transparent at Camino. Educate our listeners because this is really important.
Absolutely. So you call us up. We also have a 24/7 online store, but you can give us a call to talk to the traders. I typically recommend that if you're a first-time buyer, let's talk about what you're getting yourself into so you have a greater understanding of what's going on. You call, talk to us. We go over how much you're able to spend. We tell you the different products that we would recommend and what also you prefer too, because you should have a lot of say in your spending. And we go over the different items. We come up with everything that you should, buy. And then you send us payment, and we're going to send you metals.
And Adriana, the reverse is also true. Very easy. If folks decide, I have a wedding coming up I have to pay for, I need to cash in some of my physical precious metals. It's just the reverse, correct?
Exactly. So you call us up, lock in the prices, ship us material, and we pay you.
Now, Adriana, where are we with the premiums on gold and silver at this point? Because the paper price is drastically different than the physical price because the paper price is criminally manipulated by the banking syndicate. So where are we with the physical price, the premium that's paid right now on gold and silver, and how does it relate historically for your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I still believe that the premiums are showing that there still is an incredibly high demand for metals at this point in time. They have come down a little bit since our peak in, I would say, 2021, when sales were at their highest. And I do believe we are seeing more rapid growth. We saw more rapid growth in metals once again after Silicon Valley Bank's failure. But I do think premiums we're trying to keep them as low as possible for everybody. But they are, still showing major signs of demand outrunning supply at this point in time.
And when you look at availability, how does this compare? Is this one of the toughest times as far as availability for physical precious metals, or is this kind of middle of the road?
I would put it at middle of the road, Dave, because I do believe there is a major accessibility to everything at this point in time. We are just experiencing a little bit of a delay on shipments just because we're doing an incredibly high volume of orders at this point in time. But everything at this point, I would say, is definitely accessible.
And Adriana, in your company's experience right now, let's say over the past several weeks, do you have a majority of your buyers to sellers? What's the ratio?
So I probably would put it at a 20-to-1 ratio. For every 20 people that buy, maybe one person will sell. And to be frank, the only time that people are selling right now is due to that unfortunate, that they're falling on hard times because of inflation. We've seen people who have to sell, on a monthly basis because they're, they have lost their job and they're keeping, that's what it's there for. So it's keeping their family afloat. And I find that to be more the conversation rather than, individuals saying, I'm just ready to sell. It's never just anybody's ready to sell. Unfortunately, people are saying, I don't want to sell, but I have to.
The single greatest mistake people make when it comes to the precious metals.
Exactly. Yeah, Dave, I believe owning precious metals, and you and I really have pounded into this, is it's an insurance. You drive your car, you have a house, you have an RV, you have a boat, whatever you have, you get insurance on it. And what I'm doing in my job is to prepare the American people, is I'm putting insurance on fiat currency for you and your family and your life. And the fact of the matter is when you really do your research, you'll find that these recessions are not natural and they're not by accident. These recessions are caused, and when they're preparing, when the elites are preparing and the global syndicate is preparing, you should be preparing too, but they're not going to let you get ahead of them. And you can get ahead of them by buying gold and silver, and therefore you can make it so that your family stays completely bulletproof during a recession, because their goal is to take people below the poverty line, to make sure that people turn to the government. And our job as the American people is to make sure we stand up against our government when they're not doing what we want them to do, and that we prepare ourselves financially so that we don't fall in their hands and their requirements.
And Adriana, in our last minute and a half, educate our listeners in how they can get in touch with you and how they can place an order and how they can learn more about Camino and your website.
Absolutely. So you can reach us at 800-348-8001. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. You can also head over to CaminoCompany.com. We have a 24/7 website. And also the last thing I just want to touch on is also if you do have an active IRA, it's super important that you prepare your IRA with a percentage of gold and silver too. You'll find that IRAs and 401ks tend to be the top effective thing during recessions and are putting older people back on job searching because they get wiped out.
And contrary to some people's statements, you can help people purchase physical precious metals for their IRA because many people believe they cannot do that, correct?